Okay, picture this. You've got nearly 70,000 fans packed into Arrowhead Stadium, completely stunned into silence, just staring at a scoreboard that honestly defies all logic. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the anatomy of an absolute miracle on the pitch and figure out how one of the most unbelievable matches in football history actually went down. 27. That is the staggering number of shots Ecuador fired off in a single match. I mean, they were relentless, throwing absolutely everything but the kitchen sink at the net. But on the flip side, they were met by this number, 15. 15 times that ball was rocketing toward the back of the net, and 15 times it was stopped dead in its tracks. A total breathless barrage met by an absolute brick wall. And that brings us to the final score for Ecuador, 0. Yep, a big, fat 0. Despite all that firepower, nothing got through. Okay, let's dive into this, because how a match ends 0-0 under these wild conditions is a story that definitely needs some serious unpacking. Section 1, David versus Goliath context. To really get why this was so insane, we gotta rewind a bit and look at the massive mismatch walking onto the pitch that day. So on one side, you've got Ecuador, desperate for a win after a heartbreaking 1-0 loss to Ivory Coast. They brought their absolute heavy hitters, Premier League stars like Moises Caicedo, Gonzalo Plata, and their veteran captain Enner Valencia. And then you have Curaçao, ranked 81st in the world, a tiny island nation with a population of just about 158,000 people. Or still, they were still totally reeling from getting demolished 7-1 by Germany in their opening game. They were quite literally just out there trying to survive. And the guy leading that survival mission? Eloy Room. He's 37 years old. Now, sure, he won the Dutch Eredivisie title way back in 2018, but right now, he plays his club football for Miami FC in the USL Championship. That is the second tier of American soccer, folks. Think about that for a second. A 37-year-old second division club player stepping onto the biggest stage in the world to face down global superstars. Wild. Section 2, the first half onslaught. Let's trace the absolute chaos of the first 45 minutes. If you want to know just how tilted this pitch really was, the possession data pretty much says it all. Ecuador hoarded the ball with a suffocating 75% possession. It was basically a game of keep away, racking up an astonishing 642 passes compared to Curaçao's measly 223. Traffic was moving in one direction only. And that one-way traffic meant Room was under fire literally from the jump. Third minute, boom, Caicedo plays a searching ball, Valencia is clean through, and Room makes this brilliant diving save. 12th minute, John Yeboah fires a low drive, held. 23rd minute, Plata goes for a header, stretching save. 42nd minute, another massive stinging effort from Yeboah, another save. By the halftime whistle, it's somehow 0-0, and Curaçao is just hanging on by a thread. Moving to Section 3, making World Cup history. Because as we hit the second half, that's where a great performance morphed into an undeniably historic one. The pressure didn't even drop, it escalated. Ecuador launched 19 more shots in the second half alone. 19. The desperation was palpable. 47th minute, Caicedo from distance stopped. 63rd minute, Plata denied by this stunning one-handed reflex save. And then, the climax right in the 79th minute, Angulo unloads a pile driver from outside the box, and Room somehow dives to parry it away. And this brilliantly illustrates the magic number, that parry, his 15th save. And that number is exactly why we'll be talking about this game for decades. 15 saves sets a brand new World Cup record for a standard 90-minute match since records began in 1966. Now, I know you're probably yelling at your screen, what about Tim Howard's 16 saves for the US against Belgium in 2014? Right, but remember, Howard had extra time to hit that mark. Room rocked up 15 in just 90 minutes. Unbelievable. Section 4, a perfect 10 explained. Let's slow down a sec and reverentially deconstruct the math here, because the data analysts were just as floored as the fans were. You know, it's super easy to write off a high save count. Like maybe he was just catching a lot of weak, long-range shots, right? But the location data totally kills that theory. 10 of his 15 saves happened inside the box. So we're talking high-pressure, point-blank, ridiculously difficult shots. This wasn't a fluke. This was a technical masterclass in positioning and reflexes. Which brings us to the king of all metrics, expected goals, or XG. Based on the quality and location of the shots Ecuador took, statistical models say they absolutely should have scored at least 3 times. 3.05, to be exact.
Room essentially looked at that math, laughed, and erased it completely to keep a flawless clean sheet.
Because of that mathematical defiance, Room pulled off something practically impossible: a perfect 10.0 rating on SofaScore. I mean, it is ultra rare for a goalkeeper to snack a perfect 10, let alone when their back line is constantly bending and breaking around them for 90 straight minutes.
So, the crucial point is, yes, Room was the hero, obviously, but Curaçao actually had a brilliant, gritty, tactical survival plan that helped make this possible. They set up in this incredibly stubborn 5-4-1 block. They were totally fine losing the possession battle by design. They conceded space out wide but rigorously defended those high-value central areas. Even though they absorbed an exhausting 103 final third entries from Ecuador, they held their discipline and racked up 31 aggressive clearances to help their keeper out.
But wait, we gotta look at this from Ecuador's side too. They generated 15 shots on target. For context, that is the most shots on target by any South American nation in a World Cup match on record since 1966, and yet 0 goals. Their veteran captain, Enner Valencia alone, took 7 fruitless shots. It was just a historic, soul-crushing finishing disaster for Ecuador. When that final whistle finally blew after they miraculously survived a 90th minute scare off the crossbar, no less, the emotion just spilled over. Room said, "I just felt unbeatable tonight. Every shot that came to me, I felt like I was going to save it. It's incredible." That quote right there really humanizes all those massive data sets we just went through, doesn't it? Think about the personal redemption. The very same guy who fished the ball out of his own net 7 times against Germany just days prior suddenly stood 10 feet tall and became a literal fortress. Section 5. The Miracle Legacy. So, what does this unbelievable 0-0 draw actually mean for the rest of the tournament? Let's wrap up by looking at the broader implications. The aftermath completely flips the script for both squads. For Curaçao, it's pure euphoria. They just locked in their first ever World Cup point. Eloy Room achieves instant legendary status. But for Ecuador, full-blown crisis mode. They've now hit a record 4-match World Cup winless streak, their longest ever in the competition's history. And sitting on just 1 point in Group E, they're staring down a near-impossible task. They have to beat the group leaders Germany in their final match just to have a prayer of advancing. Which leaves us with this final thought. Look, we have seen some absolute legends guard the net on the stage before. But when you factor in the massive mismatch, the fact that he's a 37-year-old second division keeper, the insane volume of high-danger saves, and that flawless, history-making perfect 10, was Eloy Room's 15-save miracle the greatest individual goalkeeping performance in World Cup history? I'm going to let you debate that one. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and definitely keep an eye out for our next breakdown.